It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. From the Dixie Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host. I'm based in San Diego. He continues to travel across Europe. He is with us from Lisbon, Portugal at this hour. The venerable out in left field, now on the other continent, John Riley joins us. Our Monday bonus podcast is brought to you by Dixie Lumber and Home Center stores. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects for the spring into the summer. Think about materials, think about consultant, think about ideas, think about your best friend, Dixie Lumber. And by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. We will all need help with our eyes somewhere down road. When that time comes, remember the name, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido, and tell them that you learned about them via Hacksaw's podcast. John Riley, good afternoon here. Good evening in Lisbon, Portugal, the world global traveler, and the fact we've been able to do this via StreamYard from Europe. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we're high tech, we're interactive, it's all good. Lee, I'm trying to keep up with sports in America. It's kind of tough to do here in Portugal, but I'm looking forward to catching up on the news with you, Lee.
Did you enjoy Ireland?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, Ireland was fantastic. We wrapped it up going to the Cliffs of Moher on our way back to Dublin to get on the airplane, but we were there for a week and a half, and it's just spectacular, just driving all around the island. And, we'll be home back in San Diego at the end of the week.
Okay, we had a lot of topics on the table. We're doing this. We're starting at 12 noon. I would tell you it's because dude is traveling in Europe, but the reality is I have to go in for a back procedure, so my clock is kind of tight. That's why we're launching at 12 noon right now. John, when we're done with this podcast, before we sign off, we're going to invite everybody to jump on board Fans Forum. Just tell everybody on live stream how they can join us.
Okay. Yeah, this is your chance to get involved. You had a comment or question for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. You could type it into Facebook, on X, or on YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum. I already see John and Jamie that are already piling in right at the very beginning. So this is your chance to get involved, and we'll do Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Okay, John, we got a ton of topics on the table. Let's start with Major League Baseball. You in Lisbon, Portugal, wanted to talk about the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, the Padres. And, we're streaming the game right now, and it looks like they might win the third in a row. Lee, what do you think? How are the Padres looking right now?
Well, the burning question is, are the Padres going to hit? And that was the big question, I think, going on this road trip. And they caught the Atlanta Braves really in a down cycle. The Braves are shredded by injuries. Half their batting order, led by Ronald Acuna, the superstar, not hitting at all. Atlanta, the pitching problems have caught up with them. They lost Spencer Strider a month ago with the elbow ligament surgery, and suddenly their pitching is not done well, and their hitters are just not producing at all. So the Padres have a chance here, coming back from a 5-0 deficit, to maybe win this first game of the doubleheader. The Braves, right now, the Braves are getting battered. Dylan Cease got lit up today, but the Padres came back against the Atlanta bullpen. Downside, Xander Bogaerts goes down with a shoulder injury early in the first game of the doubleheader. And the burning question, when are these guys going to start to hit? Well, Manny Machado was in a 3-for-38 hole. He had 2 hits yesterday. He has a 2-run double today. Xander had a big hit yesterday. Kim had a home run. Profar's hitting 325. Jackson Merrill was in an 8-for-16 hot spell. And Cronenworth, with a big 2-run hit today, seems to have found his groove. The other thing is the Padres have stumbled across another relief pitcher. And this is kind of interesting, John. I don't know that they knew what they had in Jeremiah Estrada. But now suddenly he's become a key component running in tandem with Robert Suarez, who's got, I think the 10 saves and an ERA of under 1. Estrada's yet to give up a run in his last 10 innings coming out of the bullpen. And then on top of all that, Yu Darvish gets his 200th career win yesterday, which was spectacular. Add into that, Joe Musgrove is going to come off the disabled list. He will start tomorrow against Cincinnati. And the Padres signed longtime DH outfielder David Peralta insurance policy. It's been a chunk of time with Arizona, did pretty well, was with the Dodgers last season. He's a 279 hitter. Peralta's going to be insurance policy in case any of these outfielders get hurt. He is starting down at El Paso right now. And it's important the Padres gather themselves in. I would have never imagined the Padres could win 3 in a row in Atlanta, but like I said, they hit Atlanta in a real down cycle. It's important they do this because they got the Yankees and the Phillies coming up on the schedule in the next week or so. So right now, thumbs up Padres. However, they're not gaining any ground at all on the Los Angeles Dodgers. John?
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers are like in a different stratosphere. But how can the Padres take 2 out of 3 against LA, now win the first 3 in a row against the Braves, but lose 3 in a row to the Rockies? I mean, this is like a schizo team.
Yeah, it boggles the mind. I don't know that there's any explanation except if you don't have good starting pitching every time in the rotation, you're going to have a problem. And Cease has had a couple of rocky outings along the way. Obviously, no Musgrove. Randy Vasquez has not pitched very well. He's going to throw in the second game of the Padre doubleheader. But a lot of baseball to be played. But winning 3 in Atlanta, which I did not think was possible until you look at the roster of the Braves and understand what the hell's happened to them. So this is good news for the Padres if they win the first game of the Twin Bill. From that, next topic on the table belongs to the Dodgers.
The Dodgers. I mean, pitchers in the news. Lee, tell me more.
Well, the Dodgers are 32-17. The Dodgers are on a hot streak. They have won 13 of their last 17 again. They keep winning with their last at-bats. They beat the Cincinnati Reds twice on the weekend, John, with 9th-inning rallies. Pretty impressive team. Ohtani keeps getting key hits. Big story, Walker Buehler, who had 2 struggling outings coming off the disabled list, coming off 23 months of not having pitched. Walker Buehler throws 6 shutout innings, a 3-hit ball, was clocked at 95 miles an hour, and he looked like the Walker Buehler of old. He's pitched pretty well. By the way, the Dodger bullpen, which was misery at the start of the season, it's got a 0.54 ERA, John, in the last 12 outings. Now, there's some bad news. They lost another young pitcher, Emmett Sheehan, the kid that came up last year and pitched pretty well at the back end of the season when they needed pitching help. Elbow surgery, gone for a year and a half. That's 11 pitchers still on the disabled list. And a bit of a surprise. A year ago this time, we talked about the young outfielder, James Outman, and how good he was. And he had a really good rookie season. He's been sent back to Oklahoma City. He was batting 147, just not the same player right now. It's like scouting reports have kind of caught up to them. But entering play today, Dodgers 7 games above the Padres, and obviously the Padres have to keep winning, and you think something will cool this Dodger team off. But as long as the top of the batting order is the top of the batting order and they're playing, might not be real easy, John.
Yeah, I mean, every time the Padres win, I always look over, see how the Dodgers are doing. They're always winning too, So I think you kind of have to, as a Padre fan, you'd love to catch them, but it's maybe not realistic at all. But it's interesting how M. Sheehan got hurt. I mean, that was a surprise to me. Outman, who, by the way, has one of the best names of a baseball player in the outfield, James Outman, got sent down. That surprised me. But yeah, he wasn't cutting it for a MLB team.
Well, he hit so well last year and played a really gritty center field. He's not hitting worth a lick right now. Sometimes scouting reports catch up to you. Sometimes a kid is trying to do too much. Let's talk about the third team here in Southern California. We always touch bases on the Padres and the Dodgers, and if there's news about the Angels.
Yeah, well, there is news about the Angels, and it sounds similar to news about the Dodgers.
Well, it looks like the Angels have found a hitter. This is really hard to believe. I mean, all their player acquisitions, I think, have really been poor. Since Ohtani left, it's like they're shopping at the Dollar General store. They stumbled upon an outfielder. His name is Kevin Pillar. He's had success other places. Did well in Atlanta, did well in Toronto, was in Cincinnati for a while. They found him on the free agent list, and he has stepped up, and he's hitting well over 300 since they brought him in about 10 days ago. I don't know whether this will keep up, but he's a bit of a catalyst in the middle of the batting order that does not have Mike Trout, does not have Anthony Rendon, who's a bunch of young guys who sometimes hit the ball, other times don't hit the ball. Pitching depth continues to be an issue. To me, it's still team utility man. You look at the roster, it's either young guys being force-fed or it's just utility men they picked up at the Dollar General store. Here's a stat that'll stagger you. You know, we've talked about some of the weird games that we've watched this spring so far. You know, Padres had 11 walks in a game and couldn't win against Colorado. And, you know, the Padres were just horrible with runners in scoring position. And the Dodgers at one point were hitting 500 at the top of the batting order. Here's a stat for you. Angels on the weekend in a loss on Saturday, 0 for 18 with runners in scoring position. 0 for 18. So, you know, they're in last place. They're 17-29. I think it's a hopeless season. Somewhere along the way, there has to be a revision as to how they're going to operate this team. Artie Moreno either is going to have to hire another general manager and give him the budget to compete, because doing business this way isn't fair to the fans in Orange County. John?
Kevin Pillar, right? Now,
Yep.
Isn't there a Kevin Millar that played in, I think, for the Red Sox? And I know there was a Villar who played for the Brewers. I mean, it's easy to get these guys confused.
You're just pulling that out of left field in Spain or Portugal, aren't you? Where'd you come up with that? Actually,
That's just what I think about.
Yeah, Kevin Pillar is, you're wired differently, just like your co-host is. Kevin Pillar has had a nice career. Now, he's not a steady guy that's going to hit 305 the entire season, but he has these spurts where you say, wow, he's locked in and he's doing very well. And the Angels found him on the waiver wire, and out of desperation, because they've lost everybody with injuries, they brought him in and he's done very well. Okay, if you're a Padre fan, a Dodger fan, you're an Angel fan, feel free to join us on Fans Forum. We'll be going to that at the end of this hour on our early start on our Money Bonus podcast. John, we've got a lot of other topics in baseball to talk about, other names in baseball to cover.
Yeah, let's go to the Hacksaw's big board. I see a big list here of things on your mind.
Yeah, let's start with the logo, San Francisco Giants. Terrible news. And they've had terrible injury problems all year, John. They have lost Jung-Hoo Lee. Gone for the year, torn labrum, shoulder, major surgery will be coming. Devastating. He was hitting in the 280s. He was playing pretty well. They've just been ravaged by injuries. It's just been a terrible season of injuries for San Francisco. Pittsburgh, they might not be playing very well, but they got a pitcher that everybody is talking about. I'm talking about Paul Skeens, the number 1 draft pick out of LSU. He was dazzling in the International League with Indianapolis. I think he had an ERA of .036 when they finally called him up. Paul Skeens, in his start against the Cubs, 7 strikeouts in a row to start the game. He struck out 11 of the 15 that he retired. The guy has got just brilliant stuff, dazzling, and he's obviously the pitcher of the future, the ace of the staff. Chicago Cubs. Of all the players that came from the Pacific Rim, this guy got the least publicity, and he was one of the latest signings. Talking about Shoto Imanaga, the left-hander from Japan, was almost an afterthought. The Padres had interest, didn't move on him. John, at Wrigley Field this season, Imanaga, 5-0, 0.84 ERA. He's struck out 53 in 50 innings. He kind of looks like Hyun-Jin Ryu. He's short, he's stocky, he's got great velocity, moves the ball. Imanaga, 5-0 for the Cubs this season. Big story in New York where the Mets are miserable. They've tried to sign Pete Alonso, Scott Boras' client, to a contract extension. Alonso rejected a 5-year, $178 million deal. Now the owner, Steve Cohen, who's tired of watching his team lose at Citi Field, has indicated they may start tearing this thing down right now, not even wait to the trading deadline. And, of course, the New York media now has jumped on the fact that Alonso said no, so Cohen may say yes, trade him, get him out of here. That's a big story that is breaking there. And, by the way, he's not having a good season. New York Yankees. This is strange. I don't know where this is going to go. Juan Soto told reporters on Friday he is willing to sit with the Yankees right now and talk about a contract extension right now. He's represented by you-know-who, Scott Boras, who never signs his guys in midseason. He takes everybody to the open market, but Soto has found himself a great situation to be in. He's focused. He's hitting .312. I think he's got 12 home runs on the season. Is he going to go against Boras and tell his agent, let's get this deal done right now? Now, remember, Soto is the guy that rejected the unbelievable offer that the Washington Nationals made a couple years ago that wound up forcing the trade. New development in the Ohtani situation with his personal aide, Mizuhara. Major League Baseball's just opened an investigation at one of Ohtani's closest friends and teammates in Anaheim, shortstop David Fletcher, who's no longer there, that Fletcher and one of his best friends, a minor league player, were introduced to Mizuhara. Mizuhara introduced him to the bookie in Orange County, Matt Boyer. Fletcher has been betting on sports with Matthew Boyer for at least 3 seasons. And now there's a report his friend, a minor league infielder, was betting on baseball. Fletcher was giving him inside information on games, and his friend was betting on Angel games and other major league games. MLB has just announced within the hour investigation of Fletcher. Fletcher's currently in the Atlanta Braves minor league farm system. That's a big story. That could have real incriminations against David Fletcher. And one other story, this is quite emotional. Cincinnati Reds have an assistant pitching coach. His name is Alon Leachman. He's from Ukraine. His brother, he's from the Gaza Strip. His brother is in the military in the war and has been captured by Hamas. Leachman just revealed that over the weekend. They believe his brother is still alive. They saw a video of his brother just 2 weeks ago. So, John, you think about the burden somebody carries through their life and their career and their job, and you live with your family, and he's got this burden on his shoulders. His brother is a hostage with Hamas over in the war in the Gaza Strip. So, John, a lot of topics on the table there. Go ahead and pick one here on a Monday bonus podcast.
I'll tell you what, I love this Paul Skeens story. I mean, because not only is he a terrific pitcher, looking great, I mean, it's with the Pirates. I mean, they haven't had a phenom prospect in so darn long. And by the way, his girlfriend is this huge social media star who is a gymnast at LSU. And they're saying that she and Skeens have maybe won up Verlander and his wife. So, I mean, this is a kind of a fun story here as well. But the other angle I want to talk about is the Yankees. Soto is now willing to negotiate. He was telling the whole world it was going to wait till he entered free agency. Do you think that maybe he can see that maybe we're at the peak of money for free agents, and maybe this is the time to cash in because the money might not be there come the off season?
I think he's playing the hot hand more than anything else, John. I mean, he's having a phenomenal first third of the baseball season. He's not been overwhelmed with the pressure of being in New York. He likes his teammates. He's on a really good team. It's got one of the best records in all of Major League Baseball. You know, you don't want to go into a situation if you get hurt, you lose leverage. If you go to the second half of the season, evidently you stop hitting, you lose leverage. He's got everything falling in his way, and he seems to like it. He likes the clubhouse. He likes New York, etc. So, yeah, this is out of the ordinary. This is not the way that Scott Boras normally does business, but maybe this client will dictate to that agent, let's get this deal done.
Oh, right on. I mean, good for Soto. I mean, hopefully this works out for him. I mean, he probably wants to be in New York, don't you think? I mean, the media capital, he likes to be in the spotlight. I mean, it's probably where he wanted to go the whole time.
Where are you going to go? Oakland? Kansas City? No, there's no place else to go. This is the place to be.
Right.
I think the big story, John, is going to be not so much Soto. A big story is going to be what happens with Peter Alonso across town with the New York Mets. That's a huge developing story that he rejected beaucoup bucks, and the owner says, okay, we'll put him on the trading block. That's a big story.
Pete Alonso, I mean, granted, the guy can hit the bomb. I know that. But what's his batting average looking like? Is he still productive when he's not hitting home runs?
Last year, he kind of tailed, went down to 249, though he was hitting bombs. This year, I think he's hitting 212.
Okay, then. You don't want to put out like a 7-digit deal for that.
Well, he is a power hitter. He'll probably hit back, but you got a very compulsive owner. And that's a big issue. Steve Cohen's not happy at all that anything's happened with New York Mets baseball since the middle of last summer. Okay, next topic on the table, NFL.
NFL. Yeah, the Jaguars in the news here. What's the future for this team?
Are we talking franchise free agency here? This is kind of interesting. You and I have chatted prior about Jacksonville renovation of their stadium, looking for an interim place to play. course, there was a big argument who's going to pay for all this, and that discussion is still going on. But the story that broke on Sunday is the Jaguars have reached agreement with the mayor of Jacksonville and city council on a $1.4 billion funding program for the renovation of that stadium. Jacksonville is going to pay about 50% of it. The city and the county are going to get a 30-year lease extension to keep the Jaguars there. Now, this has to be approved by city council. I don't know that it's been rubber stamped, but the agreement is the Jaguars would play at reduced capacity in 2025 and 2026, so they could start the renovations and part of the upper deck of the stadium. In 2027, they're going to be a road team. They are going to leave Jacksonville for 2027. They've been shopping. They're looking to try to find a place to play. They go to Orlando. There is a theory out there. The NFL wants to experiment. Would they make him a London-based team for a full calendar year and play a whole 17-game schedule in London? So this looks like good news that the mayor has agreed to the expenditure. It goes to city council. I think it might be hand-stamped that it will be approved, and then Jacksonville has agreed to pay 50%. They're going to lose some money because they're going to play for less than capacity the next 2 seasons at home, and then they're going to have to go on the road and, have to find a place either in Florida, which I think they will. I don't think that they want to vacate Northeast Florida for a whole year and become a London-based team on an experiment with the NFL. But that's the latest in the NFL.
Interesting that they're finding a way to make it work in Jacksonville. But how big is that market? I mean, it's got to be a lot smaller than San Diego. And just for grins, if the Jaguars were to move somewhere, and if they were to move in the United States, I mean, what's the biggest expansion candidate in America?
In all honesty, I don't think they'd leave Florida. I think that we have bowl games that are played in Orlando, Citrus Bowl, etc. Gainesville at the University of Florida Stadium might be available. I think they want to stay in their market. I know you're trying to finagle this storyline and say, well, they could come to play in San Diego. Where are they going to play? Yeah, Petco Park. Petco Park's not going to host a National Football League team. There's really no place to go, with Oakland. But, they want to go to Oakland for full calendar year. Nah. I think maybe they play a mixed bag schedule. Maybe they dabble a little bit in Gainesville. Maybe they do something in Orlando. I think there are other places to play on an interim for just that 1 year, which is 2027. But it's a big story because in today's economics, John, I don't see very many cities or counties ponying up the kind of money that some of these owners are asking for. And yet Jacksonville is going to pay 50% of this and has agreed to take less money in the next 2 years at home. And the cities and county has agreed that we'll co-fund this thing at a higher price for you. So it probably turns out to be win-win for Jacksonville, despite your attempts to get a team in San Diego since we don't have a stadium. Hey, we get to halftime. We hope you're enjoying our Monday bonus podcast. Hacksaw here in San Diego. The global traveler John Riley is today in Lisbon, Portugal, after spending last week drinking Guinness beer in Ireland as we continue. Program note, if you like everything we do, we want you to share. We want you to subscribe. Tell all your friends that we do podcasts, the Monday bonus podcast, the Thursday regular podcast. Introduce to them my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. I write on it every day. If you punch it up, you'll get all the news and notes in the world of sports. And a reminder, subscribe to our podcast. That way, every time we put something new on the podcast, you'll also get notification of that. Our podcast is brought to you by North County Eye Centers of Poway and Escondido. We will all need help with our eyes somewhere down road, whether that's just a vision test, new glasses, contact lenses, or something more significant. And this stuff happens: cataract, pink eye, glaucoma. When you need professional help with your eyes, I'm introducing to you these people, the people that I've dealt with. You will like them. And you call them and make an appointment, or you tell them, thanks for being part of Hacksaw's podcast, North County Eye Center, Poway, Escondido. Our podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. There are 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. When you got projects to get done, you need Dixie Line. If I could move my computer, I'd show you my new windows that I got from Dixie Line. If John was home rather than traveling with the rich and famous, he'd show you his windows and it'd show you the new historic European front door he has. That's all a byproduct of who these people are. You got projects, we think you'll like what they have to offer. Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. We're back here at our Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego and in Lisbon, Portugal. John is not out in left field today. Our 12 o'clock early start today, I would tell you it's because he has an appointment to go drink some more Guinness beer, but it's because I have to have a back procedure later in the afternoon. That's why our Monday bonus podcast started at 12 noon. John, when we're done telling people the big topics on the table and what we think, they're going to tell us what they think. Introduced to everybody on live stream Fans Forum.
Yeah, Fans Forum is your chance to ask Lee any questions you have in the world of sports. Like I said, we got some guys already piling in right now. Let's take a look. We've got George and David and Stella, Manuel, Jamie, John, already got questions queued up for Lee. So if you have a question in the world of sports, type it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or on YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
And we appreciate you being part of our Monday bonus podcast. Hoops, we got a lot of basketball topics on the table.
Yeah, here we go, Lee. Look at the big board. Lakers, Nuggets, a lot of big teams here on the list.
Yeah, let's talk about Laker basketball. First things first. Lakers obviously conducting a search for a new head coach. The Lakers have also got rumors swirling around them about trade proposals. My sources tell me the Lakers have talked to the Cleveland Cavaliers about a deal for high-scoring guard Donovan Mitchell, who's a year away from free agency and has not negotiated a contract extension with the Cavaliers. The reports are, however, that the Lakers would have to give up this year's number 1 at 17 and would have to give up Austin Reeves. Cleveland doesn't want later first-round picks. They don't want next year's first-round picks. They want instant help. I don't know that the Lakers want to trade Austin Reeves in a number 1 for Donovan Mitchell. The other one is they're evidently having conversation with New Orleans about bringing back Brandon Ingram. And of course, he was a really good young player here who was shipped away and became a star with the New Orleans Pelicans. That price tag would be number 1 this year, number 1 next year. Ingram obviously is a walk free agent in a season. So keep that in mind, because not only are they trying to configure who's going to be their head coach, what is LeBron James going to do, but how do they make this team better? They're trying to get a third scoring wheel offensively. Donovan Mitchell, one idea, Brandon Ingram, the other. Let's, John, your response to that.
Well, first of all, the Lakers, do you think the other teams in the NBA kind of know the Lakers kind of over the barrel, right? Like they're using leverage here because there's so much pressure for the Lakers to be productive, and they have very few number 1s to give away. I mean, it's almost like the Lakers have got to give up a great deal just to get that one big player.
Yeah, and I also think everybody knows, you look down that roster, I don't want any of those guys. There's no sixth man that you think's a difference maker. I don't see any young draft pick that they're trying to develop that might be a player in the league. So, yeah, I think they do have the Lakers in a bind right now. Okay, let's talk playoffs. This question. Denver, Minnesota. This finishes up as an unbelievable series, record-setting series, amazing growth series for Minnesota, horrid end for the Denver Nuggets. Give me that trophy back. Minnesota came from 20 points down last night to beat the Denver Nuggets. They outscored them 33-9 in one segment in the second half in Denver, where Minnesota won games 1 and 2 in Denver. Nuggets had no answers. They played no defense. There's so much bitterness in that locker room in Denver as to how this could happen. And this came on the heels of what happened in Game 6 of that series back in Minnesota. Minnesota had scoring runs of 20-0, 13-0, and then 24-0 in beating them by 45 points. I mean, you talk about utter disgrace and embarrassment. And Mike Malone's taken a lot of heat in Denver. He says we need to make changes in this roster. He was furious. Nobody played defense. Their three-point shooting went away. Jokic couldn't do it by himself. What an awful end there for the Denver Nuggets. Losing the first two games at home, record-setting losses, then getting killed in Game 6 in Minnesota and blowing a 20-point lead in Denver in Game 7. Just nasty. In Minnesota, they grew up on the job. Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, they backed up the trash talk with a win, and obviously they got the great guard that everybody is talking about right now. So Minnesota is headed to the Western Finals. They look like a really good team. In the East, Indiana put away the New York Knicks, or maybe injuries put away the New York Knicks. If the Knicks didn't have enough problems, that they've lost 5 players during the playoff series with injuries. Jalen Brunson fractured his left hand in that game last night. The Knicks, they showed lots of heart. They just did not have lots of players. And Josh Hart was playing less than 100%. So Brunson and Hart are your 2 leading scorers. And, of course, they've never had Randall. He never played in the playoffs because of shoulder surgery. Like I said, they had 5 guys go down. And Indiana just came together. Siakam, Halliburton, T.J. McConnell off the bench, the bigs off the bench. Wow. That's a pretty good Indiana team playing red hot. And now the other team, Boston. Indiana's going to go play Boston. Hardly any time to get rested. Indiana's going to have a tough time because Boston's got Tatum and Boston's got Brown and Boston's got Derek White and Boston's got Horford and Boston's got a really good bench. So this has been a fascinating run for the young Indiana Pacers team that was kind of put together at the trade deadline. I just don't know how they get beyond Boston, but I'm really enthused to see Minnesota Dallas in the Western Finals because that's going to be a war. John, don't shoot any air balls here. Your opinions in basketball.
Well, first of all, I'm like you. I love seeing Anthony Edwards. I mean, this kid is dynamic. He's special. So I like seeing the Timberwolves moving on to the Western Conference Finals. But the Indiana Pacers seems to surprise me. Like they came out of nowhere. At the beginning of the season, was anybody projecting that this team was going to be as good as they are right now?
Well, we knew Halliburton was developing into a star, and they had 3-point shooters. And, for a large chunk of the season, John, they led the league in scoring, but they also led the league in lousy defense. But at the trade deadline, they made some transactions to get a little bit of grit, get some size, and they just started collectively playing really, really well together. And T.J. McConnell might be the best 6th man in the league right now. I mean, what he does offensively has just been phenomenal. So they're the real deal. They beat a crippled New York Knicks team. If the Knicks had not lost all these guys with injuries, I think it would have been a really fun series because they both got guys who could stroke it, but the Knicks just ran out of players. But I don't think anybody stacks up to the Boston Celtics at all. And I think we're going to have to, got to give respect to Boston because they're really deep and they got a wide variety of guys that can hurt you. I think both these series will be fun to watch. I think Dallas, Minnesota, Luka Doncic against the T-Wolves bigs and Kyrie Irving against Anthony Edwards. That's going to be a fun series.
Yeah, and it'll be fun seeing Mark Cuban on the sidelines. But it is shocking that the Nuggets got, disgraced, especially after they seem to have the Lakers number, knocking them out, having that great run last year. It's shocking that Jokic and the rest of that team are really eliminated at this point in the playoffs.
I think there's something wrong with the chemistry in Denver. Lack of defense, the carelessness, the turnovers, just shocking. The very erratic shooting, really, really badly. So I think there are going to be roster changes there. They've got to add something. There's a missing ingredient there. And obviously they don't pay attention to the coach because Mike Malone had a good track record and they won the finals last year. It's a terrible, terrible ending to the season. Okay, we go from hoops. Let's talk puck.
Yeah, puck. You got some updates here. Oilers, Canucks.
Game 7, NHL playoff series. Edmonton, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane, and their goaltender Stuart Skinner, and a really good defenseman in Vancouver tonight, Game 7. And I wake up this morning to the bulletin that Vancouver has lost its leading scorer. This is a terrible story. Brock Besser, who scored 40 goals this season, is kind of the unsung hero, one of the captains of their team. Hospitalized last night, blood clot in his leg when he got slashed in Game 6 up in Edmonton. He's out. That's a big loss. And they got problems because their high-paid European star, Elias Pettersson, has scored 1 goal in the playoffs. And there's a lot of heat on him, and he just doesn't play with any consistency at all. And Vancouver's been an unbelievable story. I mean, they've gotten to Game 7 here with their third-string goaltender. Now they got a real problem because Edmonton's got all that firepower, and Edmonton can win in Vancouver, so that's a big deal. Artur Shilovs, the Latvian goaltender for the Canucks, will start, even though Thatcher Demko, the San Diego native, has practiced in the last couple of days. He had that patella tendon injury. They're going to stay with Shilovs. He's going to be under fire. We saw in Game 6, Edmonton just sent wave after wave crashing the crease to try to disrupt Shilovs, and Shilovs was swinging a stick and belting guys in the crease. It's going to be hard, though, without Brock Besser. This Vancouver team has played very, very well, but this is Edmonton, and this is Edmonton with maybe the 2 best goal scorers, point producers in the NHL. John?
Well, I think we know a lot about Edmonton historically, of course, with Gretzky and now this Connor McDavid, and always struggling to win it. But I'm curious about the history of the Canucks. I mean, have they ever won the Stanley Cup? Have they ever had like a great deal of success?
They were part of the NHL's expansions in the 1960s. They came in kind of around the same time that the Philadelphia Flyers came in. They did get to the Stanley Cup Finals with a really good team. I think it was 1995 New York Rangers, and went to the finals. Did not win, but they had great players at that time. But then the team got old, and they replaced them, and they fired the general manager. They've been through a ton of coaches. This team was kind of put together on the fly in and around the NHL trading deadline, and they made some good deals that really helped this team. I made a couple trades with Calgary that really helped them in terms of getting grit and toughness and size on the back end. But you run out of players, and they're not the equal talent-wise of what the Edmonton Oilers are, but they've made it up because Rick Tocchet's done a tremendous job. The ex-LA King, ex-Flyer, ex-Penguin, tremendous job selling these players about grit and toughness and all out every shift, every night. That's the way Vancouver plays. But with Besser in the hospital last night, that's a devastating blow to the Edmonton Oilers.
Wow. Well, it's going to be a big Game 7 tonight, Lee.
On we go. Lots of stuff to talk about, a ton of it involving golf. You wanted to check the SportsWire?
Yeah. I mean, I saw some of the headlines here when I was in Europe about Scheffler getting arrested. I mean, this is a crazy story, but, good on Xander for winning it all.
All right, let's talk first of all about Xander Schauffele, ex-Aztec. Wins his first Grand Slam. He's been close a couple of times. He was on the final day, final grouping at the Masters. He was in second place at the U.S. Open. He's had some leads, including last week at the Wells Fargo. He had a 2-stroke lead, and it got away from him at the end. He's been right on the periphery of becoming a star. He is now a Grand Slam winner. And what Xander Schauffele did was just absolutely amazing. He had 9 birdies on Friday, 4 more on Saturday, and he jumped into the lead. And then they came hunting, and they almost caught him. But yet he kept making shots on the back 9, and he fought off everybody. I mean, he wound up fighting off DeChambeau, Morikawa, Hovland. They all made runs at him in the last 5 holes, and all of them wound up shooting bogeys trying to catch him, with the exception of DeChambeau, who hit a birdie at 18 to tie for the lead. Xander came back, last group in, he hit the birdie to win it. It's just a tremendous credit to who he is and how he's developed. And I guess it takes a special mindset to win a Grand Slam and not fade when you're playing a Grand Slam and everybody's at your back. So hats off to him. He has now graduated into star status on the PGA Tour because he's been so close. He just never got over that line. The Scheffler situation, he was due in court tomorrow. They've now just delayed it into the first week of June. They're going to try to work a plea bargain. I guess the only word I can use is bad decision. Why would you act this way at 6 o'clock in the morning when the police are investigating a fatality right out front the country club in Louisville, Valhalla, and they tell you to stop? And you flash your credential like, do you know who I am? And you try to drive around them. And a police officer runs over, grabs the car, and is dragged 10 yards with injuries. And then Scheffler finally stops. And I mean, he is lucky, John, they didn't pull a gun on him, because the police were enraged that this guy was pulling away with the officer trapped inside the car, getting dragged along the road. He obviously now admits that he made a bad decision. He's got 4 traffic charges against him. I think they'll drop the felony police assault issue, dragging the police officer. But his game fell apart in the last 2 days. He just kind of caved in and he faded. But just talk about a bad decision. So, John, your comments on golf?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like Scheffler played really well the day he got arrested, which was kind of funny. I mean, we figured he would have melted down then. But, you know, we've talked about how the PGA, a lot of their players seem to lack a lot of that personality. All the interesting guys are playing in LIV or they've retired. Now we have something to talk about with Scheffler. But as far as Schauffele goes, I'm thrilled. I mean, my wife and I were at dinner. We were hitting the refresh button on our browser, getting updates on the PGA Championship. I think it's great. I think the criticism was that he couldn't win the big ones because he got too conservative on Sundays when he had the lead. So it sounds like he was out there being aggressive all the way through.
Yeah, that was a tremendous victory. And the fact he fought off all these veterans, that was pretty impressive. Other topics on the table, auto racing. Speaking of the word tension, I sat there and watched a whole bunch of the Indy 500 qualifying. It was amazing. The track was at an all-time record 130 degrees on the pavement, and here they are close to sunset trying to qualify. Scottie McLaughlin from Team Penske ran a 235-mile-an-hour lap on that hot pavement. He grabbed the pole. Will Power, his Penske teammate, ran a 234 lap. He qualified second. Joseph Newgarden ran 2 laps of 234 in the heat. He qualifies third. So the entire Penske team will start on the front line. The amazing storyline is Kyle Larson, the NASCAR driver who's going to do a doubleheader. He's going to run the 500 on Sunday and then go to Charlotte and run the Charlotte 600 on Sunday night. First time in an Indy car, he qualified at 232.8. He's going to start, I think, 5th. It was absolutely amazing. But the tension for these drivers up front, and then they did the final 4, they call, to try to qualify to get the last 4 starting spots at the back of the grid, was with these teams that don't have a lot of money and they're one driver cars, unsponsored, and the tension on them to be able to qualify at reduced speeds, obviously, just phenomenal. Because if you don't make the 500, you're in big trouble financially as a small money team. So Indy 500 comes up on the weekend. Preakness, upset in the mud in Pimlico. Steele the Gray jumps the start, gets out of the gate faster than anybody else, fights off all the challengers, comes out of the 4th turn and has to fight Mystic Dan, the Derby winner, which made up a lot of ground. If that race had gone another 10 yards, Steele the Gray might not have won. But Steele the Gray pulls off the upset. Mystic Dan had a really lousy start, was the distant 3rd out of the gates. It was a good race. Of course, Muth, the heavy favorite, was not running because of the viral infection that horse had. Soccer, never been done before. You think about English Premier League that goes back to the early 1900s. Manchester City won its 4th title in a row in the English Premier League. That's never been done. Never been done by Liverpool, never been done by the historic, iconic Manchester United. Manchester City wins its 4th straight. Erling Haaland finishes the season with 27 goals. And speaking of crosstown, Manchester United is probably going to fire their manager, their coach, Erik ten Hag, probably sometime this week. They finished in 8th place in the EPL. And then in boxing, and boxing has disappeared off our radar here in the United States. Tyson Fury, who was the unbeaten heavyweight champion, ran into a buzzsaw and lost to a Ukrainian heavyweight star, Oleg Lysik. Lysik knocked him down in the 9th round, pounded him in the 10th, and won on a split decision. Lysik from Ukraine is 23-0. Fury is 6'9", had a 30-pound weight advantage and lost. His record's 34-1-1. It's the first time the heavyweight title has been unified. WBA, WBC, IBF, all the different sanctioning groups. First time since 1999 when Lennox Lewis owned all the belts, it's been unified. But it really begs the question, and we'll discuss this on another podcast, what the hell's happened to boxing in the USA? It's disappeared off our radar. There are no big matches here in the States. The Olympic team's no longer dominant. I mean, it's a far cry from the era of Ali, Smokin' Joe, Foreman, Larry Holmes, Sugar Ray, Lennox Lewis, Holyfield, Hagler, Hearns, Duran. I mean, it's a different era. So, John, I threw a lot of topics on the table. Pick a couple there. Give me a comment.
Okay. Well, as far as boxing is going, yeah, I remember those days growing up in the 70s with Muhammad Ali and the Rumble in the Jungle and all of that. It's nice to see boxing coming back, especially with the Creed movies, kind of having a resurgence. So I'm rooting for boxing. I mean, obviously UFC is dominating the whole fighting space. So good to see them. Man City, big championship. Love that, 4 in a row. They were horrible for so long in the shadows of Man United, and now they're the winners. They win the EPL again. That's great. But a question for you, Lee. The Indy 500, you're talking about, top speeds in the 230 to 235 range. How does that compare with the top speeds in NASCAR and on F1?
Well, that's top speed, single lap, open track. The speeds go down when you're running in traffic. The dirty air becomes much more violent, which slows the cars down. NASCAR on hot laps, guys might get it up to 220. But NASCAR's got a bigger issue because those are big, heavy cars that if air gets underneath them, John, they lift and you can have catastrophic crashes. You have catastrophic crashes with guys barrel rolling, guys into the fence. You would never want a car to go into the stands. NASCAR almost on a year-by-year basis, great question by you, on a year-by-year basis, makes aerodynamic changes to suck the car to the track. They still do get airborne, and on occasion, they do get into the catch fences. But the Indy cars, they fly on the open track, and it's different on race day because there's so many cars around you, and there's so much turbulence and so much dirty air, but you can still have accidents if somebody gets sideways or the air gets underneath them. But the whole key is not to get anybody upside down. We had one of the rookies this year flip twice and crash twice trying to qualify. That's just a case of a 19-year-old inexperienced guy. But these cars are fast, and despite everything Indy has tried to do, they still get air under the car and they can lift. NASCAR has really been ahead of the curve trying to make sure these cars stay on the track.
Well, how about this? How about if the Indy 500 is going and the Indiana Pacers advance in the NBA playoffs? This is a great time to be in Indiana.
Back home in Indiana. Exactly. Hey, listen, we hope you like everything we're doing, our Monday bonus podcast. It's time now for Fans Forum. Our podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, we want you to consult them. And by North County Eye Center, Poway, and Escondido. Let's be honest, we're all going to need help with our eyes. I have all these followers. I want you just to send a note to North County Eye Center. Thank them for being part of Hacksaw's podcast. And when it comes time for you for vision test, glasses, contacts, think North County Eye Center. We're doing a 2-continent podcast. We've done this. We haven't taken any bullets yet. Knock on wood. It's time for Fans Forum. You got questions. The guy in Lisbon, Portugal, who's co-hosting with me rather than being left field, he's going to answer them. John, your turn.
Hey, well, I'm noticing here the people in Fans Forum, one of them, I think, is the mother of Aztec star Jaden Ledee. It's from Stella Ledee. And she says, Lee Hacksaw, I'm Jaden. I think she meant to say I'm Jaden's mom. Thank you and all Aztec fans. Jaden had the best ever experience in San Diego. He has a little brother that'll be looking to San Diego State.
Well, congratulations to him. Dedication. He made the right decision. A lot of kids should consider the Jaden Ledee plan, going back for a final year, which pushed him to the top. And to the family, I say sorry that you got mistreated, I think, by the people at the NBA Draft Combine. He'll have a window to maybe sign a contract with somebody, come to somebody's camp as a free agent. I'm sure his representatives will guide him towards a roster he can make. It does not necessarily have to be a big name, sexy team. The whole key is to get yourself into a camp and get yourself into the right camp so you make it. Fine young man. Very pleased at what he became. Prime example of how great Brian Dutcher and that coaching staff and that program is, but the kid made the right decision to stay the extra year. John?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that he made a great choice to do that and to come to San Diego State. And look how the coaching staff, Brian Dutcher and his crew, how they helped develop Jaden. And wow, has he been a star? It's interesting that Nathan Mensah, who was, Ledee was his backup. He got a lot of time there with the Charlotte Hornets. Jaden Ledee could be a dominant player in the NBA if he's just given an opportunity. But this whole NBA combine, G League combine, none of it makes sense to me.
Well, I just think you're treated unfairly not to get the chance to go to the camp. But he'll have the opportunity to be in somebody's NBA camp. And the key situation is for the kid, the family, and his representative, the agent, to make the right decision. Go look at those rosters. If he gets offers, pick the right roster that gives him the best opportunity to walk in and make somebody's team. John, next question.
Next question. Let's go. Padre comment. This is from Jamie. He says, why do the Padres play better away and at home they don't?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And why do they play well against good teams and then just go 6-11 against last place teams so far this season? They won the first game of the doubleheader coming from behind, but like I said, they caught Atlanta at really a low point. The Braves are just battered with injuries, and obviously half their batting order, the Ronald Acuñas of the world, are not hitting very well. I don't have an understanding as to why the Padres don't drive guys home. I mean, their batting average at home with runners in scoring position is just anemic. But we have a lot of games to be played. They just need to keep winning because they got to make up somehow, some way, catch some ground to close in on the Dodgers, and the Dodgers aren't giving any ground at all.
Yeah, I just don't understand it, why they don't play well at home. I remember in the very beginning, the ball didn't travel. That was before they built all the buildings around Petco Park. We've talked about the Marine. Yeah, and then the Marine layer was an issue. There was always some excuse why the Padres couldn't score at home. And now they've got this roster of stars for the last 3 or 4 years, and they still struggle at home. It's just a mystery.
It was funny to me on Friday night watching the end because I mentioned this on KUSI on my Saturday morning sports segment. Padres with a $160 million payroll, John, nickel and dime their way to a Friday night win. They had 9 singles, and they beat up Max Fried, the ace of the Atlanta Braves staff, because they kept putting guys on base with bunts and infield singles and dribblers off the right side. So the Padres have won 3 in a row, and they really need to put a streak together because they go to Cincinnati next. They get the Yankees and Phillies a couple series now in the next week and a half, which is going to be really, really hard. Next question.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Then Randy Vasquez going tonight. Hey, let's go to Steve here, talk a little NHL. He says, hey, let's see if Vancouver can upset the Oilers tonight. Their goaltending has been suspect this whole season. Skinner sucks.
Skinner's been really erratic. Now, he didn't play that way during the season, didn't play that well early in the playoffs. I think the big storyline in Vancouver, and I was kind of surprised in Game 6, when Vancouver's played well against Edmonton, they've body bagged them. They've checked them. They've hit them. They've tried to stop guys from getting in the slot in front of the net to get feed passes. They didn't do that in Game 6, and obviously McDavid and Draisaitl went crazy on them in the 5-1 victory. They're going to have to come out. They're going to have to body bag them. They're going to have to play more physical, and they have in some of the games that they've won. And they're going to have to help Sheloffs because in Game 6, Edmonton just sent wave after wave of forecheckers and tried to create a lot of chaos in front of the net. So that's a big issue. But losing Brock Besser, in the hospital with a blood clot last night, that's really a tough blow. And I don't know what the mystery is with Pettersson. He's been in the league 3 years now and is getting paid an enormous amount of money. And we see games in which he's really dominant and he makes a lot of things happen. We've seen games in which he hasn't done anything at all. He scored one goal in the entire playoff series, and this is one of your top money players. So they need somebody to make this thing go. John?
I'm itching to get NHL updates here in Lisbon, Portugal. And I was flipping through my TV in my hotel room, and they were showing roller hockey. They have this like funky version of handball that goes off the walls with rackets. It's like a different world over here, Lee. I'm looking forward to coming back to America and getting caught up with the NBA and the NHL.
So you're telling me when you were in Dublin, you didn't enjoy reading their great national newspaper, the Irish Times, because the sports section was strictly about soccer and hurling and dart competition.
Yeah, it's a different world over here in Europe, I'll tell you what. Hey,
Next question.
Let's go here to Gary, and he says, I'd have a question, but you guys cover it all. I just need to do is shut up and listen.
You're great, no problem. But we did try when, some guys on podcasts just sit there and talk and tell some old stories, and we deal with the facts. What I deal with the biggest topics on the table, and we tell you what we think, and we ask you to call and comment. It's kind of like a sports talk show the way I used to do it back in the day, and now we're doing it with new technology. And new technology, just understand this. This dude still has a Royal Manual typewriter in his garage. Can't get it fixed. Nobody knows how to fix Royal Manual typewriter. So for me to move into 21st century technology and be on a podcast, that's pretty cool. It's John Riley's fault.
Yeah, we're dragging you along into the 21st century. Hey, here's a good sports question for you. Lee and John, what are your predictions for the NBA Finals and how many games?
Wow. Boston's going to overwhelm Indiana. I think the wheels on the Cinderella carriage are going to probably fall off. Boston's got a lot of firepower, and Boston's really physically tough. Indiana will put up a fight. I just don't know that Indiana can win 4 games against Boston. Minnesota, if those bigs show up and play really well, and they did a whole bunch in Denver, they're going to cause problems for Luka. And I think their defense is so tenacious, they may slow down Kyrie Williams. So I guess at the end of the day, I'm telling you, we might be talking Boston, Minnesota in the NBA Finals, which would be great because Indiana, they got firepower, but I just don't know that they have enough to hold up against these guys. And Minnesota looks like it's been built to win in postseason play because their bench is pretty deep too. But it all circles on how those bigs, they need Karl Anthony Towns, they need Cat to play well, and you need Gobert to play well, especially on the defensive end and stay out of foul trouble. I think that's going to be a great, great series.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be the T-Wolves and the Celtics in the finals. My brain says Celtics in 5. My heart says what I'd love to see is T-Wolves in 7. And wouldn't that be special?
Yeah, 7-game series. A lot of energy in Game 7. There's no doubt about how cool Game 7s really are. Next question, John.
Okay, let's see here. Is there a bunch coming in right away here as we're going? Let's go here from Callum Sports. It says, Hacksaw, do you think there's any more players who will be named linked to Ohtani now that David Fletcher has been linked to the scandal?
Well, Fletcher has been linked indirectly. Fletcher never bet on baseball. That's already been said. But now the reason MLB is open this investigation this morning, and I don't know how they're going to find this out, but they have FBI agents that work for baseball. They will find out. Did David Fletcher provide injury updates to his friend, who's a former minor leaguer? Did he provide inside information to that guy so that guy placed bets and won bets or lost money, etc.? Fletcher bet on sports, but he did not bet on baseball. But is there a flow of inside information that baseball's going to have to get answers to involving David Fletcher? He's refusing to comment. He's currently in the Atlanta Braves farm system. The Angels got rid of him about a year ago. It's not a good look for David Fletcher, and there'll be questions that have to be asked. John?
Yeah, I mean, my instinct says that we're going to start hearing more and more of this, particularly how all of the professional sports are opening up to FanDuel and DraftKings and everything else. So I expect there's going to be more of this. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Next question.
Next question. This is a good one from Gary. He says, Lee, should Ringworm and Machado be required to give some contract money back given their performance post Ringworm's ringworm treatment?
Well, you're saying that Tatis did something wrong. I don't know. He did something stupid, but I think there's a burning question. El Nino does not look like the same player as when he first came up, and he roared through the farm system, and he started very quickly. And, the question is, there has been drug testing in baseball. Some are insinuating, was he taking stuff that might have been illegal that allowed him to be a 42 home run hitter? Because he's never been close to that in the last 2 years. But no, nobody gives any money back to anybody in Major League Baseball or any of the other professional sports. And I think Manny's hurt. And I think his inability to hit, although he drove in 2 runs today, he had 2 hits last night. I just think as a byproduct that this elbow problem is still there. And what I think the Padres need to do is take him off the field from third base and just let him DH and let him do all of his excessive weight training that he needs to strengthen the elbow, because if he can't get power through the swing, then he's not the player that he was before. But no, I think it's the injury issue more than anything with number 13.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. It was nice to see him have that double in the gap to put the Padres ahead today. But I'll tell you what, whenever I see Machado and Tatis playing ball, they are suckers for that slider down and away. And I don't know why they can't rewire their brain to lay off that pitch.
I don't know. The sweeper's striking out an awful lot of guys in Major League Baseball. It's just not happening at Petco Park to the Padres third baseman and the Padres right fielder. John, final minutes here. You got a couple social media questions that you wanted to throw in my direction.
Oh yeah, we do. All right, let's start with the one from the here about the excuse me, I picked the wrong one there. Here we go. Social Angels comments. My goodness, I'm trying to keep up here. It says this is about time to trade Trout. It says stop, Lee. You were once good. Now you're just an old senile shaking your fist at the sky. Everyday starters, Nolan Chowell, Zach Zito, Logan O'Hoppe, Taylor Ward, Joe Adell are homegrown players. Time for you to find a rocking chair. The Hacksaw has lost his teeth.
TJ Ray, thank you for the comment. Sorry you're bleeping wrong. You're going to move to left field to replace John. Do you enjoy last place? Do you enjoy your ownership? They had the happenstance to land Ohtani and then could not bid on him at the end, then didn't spend the $30 million from Ohtani's salary to go get established players. TJ Ray, are you satisfied with your franchise? Don't beat up the host. Why, with a team that says we're the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim in the number 2 market in the country, why they're buying players at the Dollar General store, DJ? Please explain that to me. I'm not bagging on O'Hoppe or Zito. I think those are good guys who came through the system. They don't have enough players. I swear to you, DJ, go down their roster. How many utility men do they have on their roster? How many 4A players do they have on their roster? Do that, because out in left field where you're going to be moving, there's no lights at night. So do it before you leave. I think they need a new leadership. I'd like to see new ownership. I do believe they'll make a change in general manager. But it takes time to fix all the wrongs that they have, and they have a lot of wrongs right now. John, that's my opinion. He's your best friend. He's out in left field where you normally are.
Well, it seems like they've got a lot of really high draft picks, like Joe Adell. Mickey Moniak was number 1 overall in the MLB draft, but yet they go to Anaheim and they stink up the joint.
Well, I think the other thing is I like Odell. Odell's never done anything in the major leagues. What's his 5th year? Now, he's hit some home runs this season. What's his career batting average? 206? Moniak had a discovery year last year, has not been able to back it up so far this season, but sometimes it takes time for guys to grow into the game. They've waited for Adell for a long time, and he's not an established, steady major leaguer. There's an occasional home run there. So I think there has to be a change at the top, and whether that's the owner or the team president or maybe the general manager or all three, they've got to change the thing. Anaheim's a great market. It's a market. Orange County's a market unto itself. This should be a better franchise than it is. And they've made a lot of mistakes with big money free agents too. John?
Okay, let's move on. Let's get one more here from Dodgers. We posted that social media about why people hate the Dodgers. It lit up on Instagram. This is from Pete, and he says, I'm a Dodger fan, and I think it's because our fans can be pretty obnoxious. I have to say, though, that the current team is made up of some of the nicest guys in baseball.
Well, winning creates enemies. Not everybody likes the New York Yankees, and they won forever and ever and ever. Winning creates jealousy, and that's probably got some rationale as to why the Dodgers are disliked lots of different places. I think it's a great organization. I think their ability to find players, their ability to develop pitching is amazing. And do they make big money trades? Sure. Second market in the country. They draw $4 million. But it's not that it's irresponsible spending. They spend just above the luxury tax limit, and then they reset and go under. But their ability to develop players and find players is pretty impressive. Hey, listen, we thank you for joining us early. We had to start at 12 o'clock because John's going out to drink some more Guinness beer, and I have to go have a back procedure surgery today. But we'll be back on Thursday. We'll email. We will X you our starting time on Thursday. It might be 12 noon again. It might be 1. We'll let you know when we get ready. But we thank you for being part of what we're doing here. Share, subscribe, check my website. I write on it every day. You get a chance, contact our sponsors. Tell them you're thankful that they've come on our team too. John, enjoy Lisbon, Portugal. Next stop, Spain. A week from now, we'll probably be back in our studios, and you'll be out in left field again with your opinions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back to San Diego, Lee. It's going to be a good.
Great trip. And thanks for you. Thank you for joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.